How often do you catch yourself saying sorry for things that aren't really your fault? Maybe you've apologized for asking a question or even for sharing your opinion. Apologetic language is more than just words. It's a reflection of how we see ourselves and our place in the world. In today's video, we're going to explore why we over-apologize, the impact it has on our confidence and relationships, and most importantly, how to stop the habit. You learn practical ways to shift your language from apologetic to assertive, helping you build stronger relationships, boost your self-esteem, and take up the space you deserve. I am not sorry about this video. Hey, my name is Greg from Renew. I'm a master coach helping people, teams, and organizations to know themselves, design their future self, and become their future selves. Renew and I are here to help you live a life where you have control. It is a national sport of the British people, and we all do it for good and bad reasons. Why do we feel the need to apologize so much, even when we haven't done anything wrong? The truth is, over-apologizing is a hidden habit many of us don't even realize we've picked up. But it runs deeper than just being polite. For most of us, this habit starts early in life. We learn it from our families, our schools, and even from our cultural norms. For instance, some of us were told that it's important to always be accommodating, always keep the peace, and never make waves. And I was joking, but yes, the British people learn to apologize profusely from a young age. I can attest that living with a British person. Think back to when you were a child. Maybe you were told to apologize even when you weren't sure why, just to smooth things over. This kind of conditioning sticks with us and shows up in our adult lives in subtle ways. We start apologizing for things like interrupting someone, even if we have something important to say. We even apologize for simply existing in someone else's space. Apologizing too much comes from a variety of factors like emotional triggers, mindset, and belief system. Stay tuned, and we will explore this a bit later in this video. Here's a quick exercise to try. Over the next few days, start paying attention to how often you apologize. Each time you say sorry, ask yourself, was it really necessary? Was I actually at fault? Or was I just trying to avoid discomfort or seek approval? This awareness is the first step in breaking the habit. You might be surprised by how often those unnecessary apologies pop up. Apologetic language can shape the way people see us and, even more importantly, the way we see ourselves. Let's start with some common phrases you might use without thinking. I'm sorry, but I just had a quick question. Sorry to bother you, but I know this might sound dumb, but sound familiar? These phrases seem polite or harmless, but every time we lead with an apology, we're actually diminishing our message before we've even said what we want to say. And by the way, you can learn a lot more about how not to start sentences with no or but in this video here. When we do that, it's like wrapping a powerful idea in a blanket of self-doubt. Over-apologizing doesn't just affect how we feel, it also affects how others perceive us. Think about it. When you're constantly apologizing, you're sending a subtle message that you are unsure of yourself. In professional settings, this can make colleagues, clients, or bosses question your confidence, even if you know exactly what you're doing. Imagine being in a meeting and prefacing every suggestion with, "I'm sorry, but." You might have a brilliant idea, but that apology weakens your impact. It makes people take your input less seriously, whether they realize it or not. Over time, this habit can chip away at how much influence you have in important conversations, both at work and in your personal relationships. And it's not just the words, it's the way we physically present ourselves when we apologize. Have you ever noticed that when you say sorry, you tend to hunch your shoulders, make yourself smaller, or avoid eye contact? This isn't just a coincidence. Apologetic language often comes with shrinking body language, as if we're trying to take up less space. These behaviors tell the world that we're unsure of ourselves. And guess what? If we keep behaving this way, we start to believe it too. It becomes a cycle. The more we apologize, the more we feel unsure. And the more unsure we feel, the more we apologize. This becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And when you believe that about yourself, it affects how you act and it affects how others treat you. So if you're always apologizing, you might end up creating the very situation you were trying to avoid. People undervaluing you, not taking you seriously, or treating you as if you're less confident than you really are. Next time you find yourself about to say sorry, especially in a situation where you're not actually at fault, take a breath and check in with your body. Are you shoulder slumping? Are you avoiding eye contact? This gives you the chance to decide what posture to adopt and to feel and speak differently. What's driving this behavior beneath the surface? The answer lies in the psychology behind our language. One of the biggest emotional drivers behind over-apologizing is fear of judgment. We often worry about how others perceive us. What if I sound rude? What if they think I'm incompetent? These fears lead us to apologize even when it's unnecessary, as a way to soften the blow. But constantly saying sorry actually makes you more likely to be judged for lacking confidence. Then there is insecurity. People who struggle with low self-esteem are more likely to apologize because they feel like they are a burden or that their opinion and needs are less important than others. This comes from a deeper belief that they are not good enough, so they try to smooth things over by shrinking themselves. Another big driver is a need for external validation. Many of us apologize as a way of seeking approval. I'm sorry becomes code for please don't be upset with me, or I want you to like me. That is linked to the approval bias. We've been conditioned to believe that our value comes from how much other people like or approve of us. Over time, this can lead to a habit of self-minimizing, where we put other people's needs and opinions above our own just to maintain approval. When we constantly apologize, we're essentially giving others permission to see us as less than, because we're telling them that we don't believe in our own worth. Then we have conflict avoidance. Apologetic language is often used as a way to keep the peace. We apologize for the smallest things because we fear confrontation. This, by the way, is linked to a natural bias that we have, the negativity bias. This is our brain's natural tendency to focus on negative outcomes or reactions. We assume that if we don't apologize, someone will be upset or offended. Here is the irony. Avoiding conflict by over-apologizing can actually create more tension in the long run. It sends mixed signals and can make it harder for others to understand what you really think or want. It's also important to recognize that apologizing is more common among certain groups. Women, for example, tend to apologize more than men, partly because of social conditioning from a young age. Also, in some cultures, politeness is valued so highly that over-apologizing becomes a norm. In these environments, it can be hard to break the habit because it feels like the social expectation, like in many Asian cultures, for example. This brings us to a key mental model that can help us understand the psychology behind over-apologizing, the fix versus growth mindset. People who tend to over-apologize often operate from a fixed mindset, where they believe that mistakes or conflicts define them permanently. They see every small error as a reflection of their character, which makes them more likely to apologize excessively to cover up those mistakes. On the other hand, someone with a growth mindset understands that mistakes are opportunities for learning and growth, not reasons to apologize unnecessarily. They are less likely to say sorry for small things because they see them as part of the learning process, not as failures. You like this video so far? Then you know what to do. Also subscribe and put on the notifications if you want to receive content like this every week. And check out in the video description other YouTube videos on the same concept. It's always good to look at the topics through multiple voices. Apologies are not always a bad thing. In fact, when used appropriately, they can repair relationships, show accountability, and demonstrate emotional intelligence. But the problem arises when we apologize reflexively, especially in situations where it's not needed. So when is an apology really necessary, and when does it become harmful? A genuine apology is essential when you've made a mistake, hurt someone, or failed to meet an obligation. For example, if you miss a deadline at work or say something that offends a friend, offering a sincere "I'm sorry" can help rebuild trust. Apologies show we take responsibility for our actions and care about the impact we have on others. An important part of this is ownership. You're acknowledging the mistake and showing that you're willing to make amends. This type of apology can actually strengthen your relationship because it fosters respect and honesty. On the flip side, over-apologizing can have the opposite effect. Apologies become harmful when we use them for things that don't require it, like asking a question, needing clarification, or simply taking up space in a conversation. As mentioned before, when you apologize for things that don't actually warrant it, you unintentionally diminish your own value. Instead of showing humility, over-apologizing can make you seem insecure, and that insecurity affects how people treat you. Think of communication as a spectrum, with assertive communication on one end and apologetic communication on the other end. Assertive communication is clear, direct, and respectful. It values both your needs and the needs of others. Apologetic communication, on the other hand, puts the other person's comfort above your own, even when it's unnecessary. By shifting toward assertive communication, you can maintain respect while also affirming your own value. This shift isn't about being aggressive or pushy, it's about standing firm in your words and communicating with confidence. Much more about how you shine with an assertive presence in this video right here. Breaking the cycle of over-apologizing is possible, and it starts with small, mindful changes to how you communicate. The first step in breaking any habit is awareness. You can't change what you don't notice, right? So the next time you feel the urge to say sorry, pause for a second and ask yourself, am I really at fault here? Or am I apologizing out of habit? Just creating this little gap between impulse and action is very powerful. It gives you the chance to choose a different response. To help build this awareness, keep a sorry journal for a few days. Write down every time you say sorry, especially when it's not really necessary. You might be surprised by how often it happens. You might even try to make a sorry jar instead of a swear jar. Put a bit of money every time you find yourself saying an unnecessary sorry. One simple but effective strategy is to replace your apologies with gratitude. For instance, instead of saying, sorry, I'm late, try, thank you for waiting. This small shift changes the tone of the interaction. It moves the focus from what you did wrong to what the other person did right. It also feels more positive and respectful without diminishing your presence. Another example, instead of sorry to bother you, you can say, thank you for your time. Gratitude shows appreciation and respect without lowering your own value. Another important shift is to use assertive language instead of apologetic language. For example, instead of saying, sorry, I just had a quick question, I'd like to ask a question. This kind of language shows that you respect both yourself and the other person. It's not about being pushy or demanding. It's about being clear and confident in your communication. Let's talk about some common situations where people tend to over-apologize and how you can reframe those interactions. For instance, in meetings or group discussions, people often say things like, sorry, can I say something? Instead, try something more assertive like, I'd like to add a point, or I have an idea I'd like to share. If you're interrupting a conversation, rather than saying, sorry to interrupt, you can say, excuse me, I'd like to add something here. It's polite, but still assertive. Acknowledges the interruption without diminishing your right to speak. Like any habit, breaking the cycle of over-apologizing takes practice. It won't happen overnight, and that's okay. The key is to be consistent in your efforts. Start with small changes. Focus on one type of apology that you want to reduce, like apologizing for asking questions or speaking up in a group. The more you affirm your own values through your words, the more confident you'll become. And you can find much more about how to get rid of tentative language in this video here. Think of communication as a script you've been following. If you're used to over-apologizing, that's part of your old script, one that's based on fear of judgment, insecurity, or seeking approval. Here is the good news: you can rewrite your script. By consciously changing your language, you're essentially telling yourself and others, I deserve to be here, and I'm confident in what I have to say. You might find the following quote inspiring you to keep growing in your language, mind, and behaviors. Stop shrinking to fit places you've outgrown. Speak confidently and take up the space you deserve. Changing your language is eventually about you affirming the choices you want to make in your life. If you want to learn more about how to shape your life through powerful choices, then take a look at this video here.